Rick and Morty may well be one of the most messed up shows on the air today, animated or otherwise. As wacky as Rick Sanchez's journeys through the multiverse can be, this show is never afraid to go incredibly bleak, ridiculously weird, or some combination of the two. Basically, Rick and Morty knows how to leave fans saying, WTF. What the f***? Here are the 10 most WTF-worthy moments in Rick and Morty history. As it turns out, there's much more to rapper-turned-actor Ice-T than we ever guessed. In one of the most purely random plot twists in the show's history, we learn that Ice-T is actually an anthropomorphic letter from the planet Alphabetrium, one who's cursed to wander the universe because of his inability to care about anything. Ice is able to cast aside his apathy and assume his true form as the mighty, planet-liberating Water T. The Season 1 episode, Rick Potion number 9, was one of the first times fans really got a taste for how dark and nihilistic the series could be. After Morty accidentally unleashes a love potion on the world, Rick attempts to counteract the potion with a little dash of praying mantis DNA. Long story short, by the time Rick is done attempting to clean up his grandson's mess, the entire world has transformed into hideous monstrosities straight out of David Cronenberg's worst body horror nightmares. Even worse, there's no cleaning up this mess. Even something as simple as playing a video game in the Rick and Morty universe can be a one-way ticket to emotional torture. When Rick and Morty visit the intergalactic arcade Blips and Chits, Morty makes the mistake of sampling an arcade game called Roy, A Life Well Lived. He immediately finds himself living out the titular character's entire life in real time. By the time Morty snaps back to reality, he spent decades as a completely different person. Maybe next time he should stick to Dance Dance Revolution. We all know how the Rick and Morty dynamic goes. Rick is the domineering, self-serving leader, while Morty is his meek, spineless sidekick. But in close Rick counters of the Rick kind, we learn there's one Morty in the multiverse who can give any Rick a run for his money. Evil Morty truly lives up to his name, killing dozens of Ricks, enslaving hundreds of Mortys, and framing his own Rick for these crimes. Even worse, Season 3 makes it clear Evil Morty's plans of multiversal dominance have only just begun. If there's one takeaway from Season 3's The ABCs of Beth, it's that Beth may be every bit as deranged as her father. In this episode, Beth and Rick travel to the lighthearted artificial dimension known as Froopy Land to track down Beth's childhood friend, Tommy Lipkip. There, Tommy reveals via a disturbingly cheerful play that he spent decades mating with Froopy Land's cartoonish inhabitants and eating his human Froopy hybrid offspring. And if that isn't WTF worthy enough, it turns out that Beth is the one who trapped him there in the first place. At first glance, Mr. Meeseeks seems like a rare dose of light in a universe dominated by doom and gloom. But as Meeseeks and Destroy shows us, there's a real darkness lurking just beneath the surface of this blue jolly helper. Frustrated by its inability to help Jerry improve his golf game, one Meeseeks winds up summoning dozens more Meeseeks as they go mad, sparking all-out Meeseeks war. It turns out that a creature whose only purpose is to be born, help someone, and die is not to be trifled with. The episode Total Recall is basically a 30-minute long WTF moment, as the Smith household is invaded by pesky psychic parasites who take the form of imaginary friends like Hammer-Eye, Photography Raptor, and Sleepy Gary. Rick, Morty, and the family are able to dispatch these parasites with extreme prejudice, but not without a high cost. Beth shoots the plucky little Mr. Poopy Butthole only to realize he's actually a real family friend and not a parasite. But at least he gets better. Mostly. As bad as Jerry's Mr. Meeseeks ordeal in Meeseeks and Destroy is, Morty actually had it much worse in that episode. In another early sign of just how crushingly dark the Rick and Morty universe can be, Morty finds his whimsical fantasy quest ruined when a sexual predator named King Jellybean tries to force himself on Morty in a bathroom. It's a truly skin-crawling moment in a series that's ostensibly a comedy. Rick Sanchez may act like the coolest, most carefree mad scientist adventurer in the multiverse, but viewers have been reminded time and time again this is all an act. Deep down, Rick is actually deeply depressed and lonely. To this day, nothing better captures the existential mindset of Rick Sanchez better than this moment in Autoerotic Assimilation. After his romance with Unity fails once again, Rick returns home, grows himself a Cronenberg pet, murders that pet with a death ray, and turns the weapon on himself. It's only thanks to his debilitating alcoholism that Rick lives to see another day. In the world of Rick and Morty, truly happy endings are few and far between. Sometimes you just have to make the best of the bad hand you're dealt. That's the main takeaway from Rick Potion number 9, an episode we've already talked about, but one that also ends on the most WTF-worthy note in the show's entire WTF history. Faced with the world overrun by Cronenbergs, Rick and Morty simply give up, seek out an alternate universe where they can take the place of their dead selves, and leave their home behind forever. The act of abandoning his family and burying his own corpse is something that continues to weigh heavily on Morty even 2 seasons later, and why shouldn't it? Let us know in the comments what your biggest WTF moment is from Rick and Morty, and be sure to check out our top 25 adult animated comedies or Rick and Morty reading IGN reviews. And be sure to subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch.